All right, ladies, grab your favorite spot, grab a yummy beverage, turn off your notifications, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and come join in this conversation with myself and Dr. Mindy Pelz. As you guys all know, she is the author of Fast Like a Girl. She's got an epic book coming out next year, Age Like a Girl. She is a fasting expert. She has a beautiful way at looking at the female body and the hormones. She's an incredible storyteller, has a heart of gold, and as so many of you know, she has such a talent for taking complex information and putting it into bite-sized chunks that we can actually digest and incorporate into our lives as women. Also, my community is here in the background. They get to hang out and ask their private Q&A questions of Dr. Mindy Pelz once we pause and push stop on that recording studio. We've got so many incredible links for you below to find out more information on all the exciting things we're doing in this community. So excited for you to be here. You took this time, so truly be here and get the most out of this conversation.
What I have witnessed in my own menopausal journey is really breaking free of that power over, whether it's the have tos of a family life or the driving of a career. And I've really had to go power within.
Where we aim for when we're doing these things, and what are the tools that can help keep us on that path? Because, becoming your best self doesn't always feel good.
You said this to me. You were like, you said this to me a year ago. It's your fault, actually, Melissa. You said to me, I think it's so interesting how you are so worried about letting everybody else down and you're not worried about letting yourself down. I don't really want to achieve.
What do you want?
I want to get to know myself in the deepest way I can, searching for peace. I'm searching for calm now. I really don't care if you look at me and you're like you will never see me Botox, because I don't care enough to have you look at me and tell me, oh my God, you're beautiful. Yeah.
All right, ladies, we see some of our private community hopping in. So we are going to start this conversation. Mindy, thank you so much for truly being here. And when I say being here, I mean like showing up amidst everything going on in your life to have this very real conversation with these
Thank you.
very real, beautiful women in this community.
Thank you. Thank you. And a conversation with you is always an easy one. So, and perhaps I can show my most authentic self with you. There's no performative place for my brain to go because it's so used to just being real. So this may be the most real version of me that anybody's ever gotten on a podcast.
But Mindy, I wonder your thoughts on this. I mean, my goal for this conversation is more like the bigger picture of setting ourselves up for success, in fasting, in life, in our goals, and really maybe more of like a feminine approach to that and less of like,
Mm,
here are the to-do steps and here's how we follow this
mm.
linear model. How's that sound to you?
It's interesting. I was putting what I will hope are the final edits on my next book that I've been writing for 3 years now. And I was really thinking when I wrote this book about the difference between power over and power within. And a lot of times, what I think happens, we live in a power over society where we have structures of power that control us. And what I have witnessed in my own menopausal journey is really breaking free of that power over, whether it's the have tos of a family life or the driving of a career. And I've really had to go power within. And what do I want? What's right for me? And really get to know my own voice outside of the context of trying to please everybody. And so, I think I just think it's a beautiful way to look at um, your own metamorphosis in life is, when do we finally get to let go of what everybody else is expecting of us? And we actually, you said this to me. You were like, you said this to me a year ago. It's your fault, actually, Melissa. You said to me, I think it's so interesting how you are so worried about letting everybody else down and you're not worried about letting yourself down.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, and it
Mhm.
was like somebody slapped me across the face, and I've spent the last year not letting myself down. And it's been a lot of work, and it's really, really messy.
Yeah, it's messy. And I think that's what's really important to talk about because, and I want to talk about maybe like where we aim for when we're doing these things and what are the tools that can help keep us on that path. Because I read this quote, it was like one of those Instagram pop-ups today, and I'll share it in the community because it was so beautiful. And it was like, becoming your best self doesn't always feel good. Like it's a lot
No,
of
it
letting go
doesn't feel
and
good at all.
disappointing people. And so in that process, I think, if a woman is like hearing a conversation like this, she's like, "All right, here I go. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna stand up for myself." And then you start doing this alone without having conversations with people that are going through it together in community. You're like, "What the hell? This is not what it's supposed to be like." But that's
No,
exactly what it's going to feel like.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, for me in the last like couple of years, it's been brewing, but the last year was just the craziest of my life, and I really started to give myself permission to put my needs first. I'm 55. A lot of women get to this point. Like my kids don't need me. I'd actually like them to need me a little more. They don't seem to call and ask for advice unless it's like involves money. But it's that part, your identity is falling apart as a mother. Like I remember in September, I was in Turkey and I had this really intense realization that my mother, nurturing mother energy had nowhere to go because my kids were like, nope, we don't need you. We're adults now. We got it. And I was like, well, and I didn't have my practice anymore. It's like, what do I do with all this nurturing love? Like, where? And so I had to turn it on myself and nurture
Mhm.
myself. And then that really became fun to think about, like, what is it that I need to nurture myself? And then I started looking at things like, I don't know if you've done, and this, I mean, I don't know where you want to go with this conversation. I could go in a lot of different directions, but I started looking at internal family systems and parts work. And I started really going in, and then I've done some psychedelic journeys in the last year. And I really started to go in and understand my childhood version of me. Who is that little girl? What did she need? And now I can proudly tell you that a year later, I feel like I stand as the big fifth, big grown woman who now puts all her nurturing energy towards her little girl because that was the only one that would accept it. And
Mhm.
so I've just taken it and nurtured that little girl who felt left out, that little girl who always needed to be mom's favorite, the little girl who felt like nobody believed in her. Like I kept looking outside myself, trying to find other people to heal that little girl. And what I learned in the last year, just in all the messiness of my life, is that I needed to become the woman who took care of the little girl who that wanted somebody to take care of her in the way that I can now take care of her.
I love that. And it's so beautiful. And it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning. You're literally switching from a power outside to a
Yep.
power inside. And so,
Yep.
in the chaos that has been your last year, which has been, I imagine, one of the hardest years that someone
It's
could
crazy.
experience.
It's
And I
horrible.
want to talk about it a little bit. I have questions for you. But in those moments where everything around you is unknown, having
Hmm.
those tools, and I think tools are so important. You and I talk about anchor tools.
Hmm.
Because when the world feels chaotic and you're teaching yourself to go into power within, how do we access that when it's new and unfamiliar? And how do we flex
Hmm.
that muscle? And so what I hear in there, some of your tools, family, family, I don't know these
Yeah, it's called
tools, but I hear them all the time.
internal family systems, and I this is what I tell my Reset Academy. I'm a student of it. I'm not an expert of it, but and my therapist uses it with me. So, but it's really cool. If you haven't checked out internal family systems, it's pretty neat to look at yourself as parts instead of constantly looking at yourself as a whole. And that's a big part of what I did over the last year is pull out these parts and see what needed healing. And for me, and I think a lot of women would feel this, is that a lot of those parts are these younger versions of us that when before our hormones kicked in had a true essence of play and fun and possibility, and then our hormones kick in. And when estrogen kicks in, our brains become highly relational. So, what's unique to the female brain is that when you get estrogen, you start to get a brain that cross references. And this cross reference brain is sparked by estrogen. So you can take your right and your left hemisphere, your emotional and your creative, and your logical and practical. And you, for every decision, you're using this cross reference brain, which means that you take everybody else's opinions into your decisions. When we go into menopause and you lose estrogen, one of the major things that happens is you lose the cross reference brain and you get more of a lateralized brain, which is more of a male, more like a male brain, where you can be in creative and you can be in emotional and you can sit there, and you and I have talked about this before, and you can play and you can have fun. And then you can come over here and be in logical and practical and focused, but you're no longer referencing both sides of your hemispheres in every decision that you make. And for a woman, that is freedom. You
Interesting.
see why?
No.
Because you don't have to take everybody else's considerations in. You don't.
So
You're like,
that's on
yeah,
the
you're
other
like,
side.
yeah,
That's
like I
after menopause.
Yeah, like estrogen goes out, you get a lateralized brain. I can sit and talk to you. If you want to ask about fasting, I'll just move myself over to my logical, practical side of my brain. I'll tell you all the answers by fasting. If you want to know about my emotional journey, I'm just going to go over to my emotional right side of my brain and I'll tell you about the last year. But I'm no longer using both sides of the brain to answer every single question
I
like I
get it.
did in my younger years.
You're no longer answering questions, but also worried about what I'm thinking about what you're saying.
Yeah, like I don't really give a shit. I really don't. And if you it's really freeing. If you look at like every menopausal woman, like there's like this, I don't know if you've seen this trend. This woman has got these videos called We Do Not Care Club. And she's like, this is for the perimenopause and menopausal woman. And I'm watching her videos and I'm like, oh my God, yes. We
Hmm.
literally, our brains are not designed to care. And so we just don't care about the same things anymore because our brain changed. And so when I look at like the last year, like I got tired of my messy house and I told my husband, we need to declutter this house and I would like to move. And he was like, I moved every 2 years as a child. I don't want to do that to our children, even though we've lived in this house for 30 years. He's like, I would like to have a home, a family home that we live in forever. And I was like, that sounds horrible. I need something new. And so then I was like, well, hey, we need to declutter this house. So I hired a declutterer because I was like, can we just get all the crap out of here? And then my family got mad at me. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, let me go to my own house then. And that was what I was doing in LA. I'm like, I'll just find another place to live. And everybody's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm taking care of me now. I don't care anymore to keep adapting to your guys' needs. I'm going to go take care of me. And that's what I did over the last year. And it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, lots of questions on that. But before, like, thank, thank God, I keep thinking about this. Our parents freaking raw dogged perimenopause and
Oh
menopause.
my God, they totally did.
They raw
They
dogged it.
totally did.
They had no insight.
Oh,
They
they
had no
totally
one.
raw dogged it. That's so good. That's such a good statement.
That's an,
I, I actually, my mom's 85, and I've actually talked to her about what I've been doing over the last year. And I said, Mom, I'm taking myself on and I'm starting to look at the context of my life and build it the way I want to build it. And she said, I'm so proud of you for doing that. I wish I had done that. And this is where wise elders are really important. Is she's like, Mindy, it gets harder. Relationships get harder, living situations get harder as you age. So setting your boundaries now, making sure you're living life on your terms, handling your childhood wound. She's like, I wish I had done that when I went through menopause.
wow, beautiful insight.
I
I would
know.
love to know, you guys that are in the community, like, how is this landing for you? Put something in the chat. What's like the crazy wild thing that you would want to do? Like for Mindy, for you to be like, Okay, I'm moving
Mhm.
to LA because I want a new house. Like that is very brave. That is doubling down. That is psycho breaking. I mean, I imagine
Yes.
people looked at you and were like, "What's happening? Is this a midlife
Oh
crisis?"
yeah. Oh yeah. And LA, because my kids were like, "What do you mean you're moving back to LA?" I'm like, "This is where I grew up. This is my home." LA is a very interesting town because a lot of people like it's trafficy, it's crazy, but if you the area I was living in was so beautiful, but if you know LA, you know it's the center of creativity. There is a reason that it is the hub of podcasting for the world right now. It is the center of creativity because of Hollywood and the way. So when you are somebody who wants to create, like you and I've talked about that, going to a town or an area where everybody's in creation mode, that felt really good to me. And then it also is has a huge, all the wellness influencers were there. So I there were multiple reasons I wanted to go there beyond just my own I need a change, and the people who I call family are not loving the changes.
Mhm.
Yeah, my kids were like, "What you went?" I had, and even friends were like, "You're going back to LA." Even my sister, who grew up there with me, was like, "That town is so superficial. Why are you going back there?" And I'm like, "Because it's creation, and it's my home. It's where I started my life, and I would like to finish it there too." Was the original plan, not anymore.
I think what I've also watched is you think outside the box, and we've got some good questions coming up in the chat. Someone says they wishes they could move to a different state, but they can't because family. I know
Yeah,
her kids are around the same
yeah,
age as your kids, but like it doesn't have
yeah,
to be black and white, and it doesn't have to fit in a container of either or. Like, can we
yeah,
start coming at the world from this place of both and,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
and both and yeah, you and I've talked about both and is really good. I have a really good friend who's a performance coach that always reminds me it can be both and, Mindy. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I'll tell you what, I'm going to pass on what the wise elders in my life have passed on to me. If you can't move out of the state and your family wants to stay in one spot, a woman who I was working with, oh, you actually brought her on. I think Dr. E,
mhm.
Deborah.
Yep, the
Yeah,
Enneagram coach.
so she told me when she hit my age that she started taking 1 week every month and going somewhere by herself. And in the beginning, it was just going on like vacation with herself. And then they ended up buying a house in the Cayman Islands. So obviously, if you can afford another home, but I realize not everybody can do that. But what I loved was this idea of going on vacation with myself every 1 week, every single month. Maybe it's not a week, maybe it's a weekend, but that I started with a couple of days. So the other thing to know about me is that when I hit my this breaking point last year, I realized that because I was the breadwinner of the family, I would leave and go to the office. And I would be around people at the office, and I would come home to a family that was there. In 30 years, I kid you not, Melissa, I probably spent less than 10 hours alone.
Wow.
I never was alone. I didn't sleep alone. I literally the only things I did alone were like showering and going to the bathroom. Yes, I would love to know. Like it hit me like I've never been alone. And
Mhm.
even, when our kids are little, the little ones were following me into the only place I could be by myself. And so I worked out with friends. I went to yoga classes. Like there literally was no alone. So when I first started to look at this, I started practicing alone. I was like, okay, let me try alone for 3 days. And I was like, whoa, like there's nobody to ask what we're having for dinner. There's nobody to ask or to bounce off of what time do you want dinner. There's nobody to say goodnight to. Like I get to go to bed whenever I want to go to bed. The temperature of the bedroom gets to be the temperature I want. Like it was so crazy those first 3 days of just learning to be alone. And then after 3 days, I was like, okay, I need to go be around people again. And then I expanded that out to a week, and I'm keeping that now. The alone is where I form a relationship with myself. Because if I'm not alone, then I'm in, this is what we do as women, I'm in service of everybody around me, because that is how I've trained myself to be. So
100%.
the alone has been magic. So whatever way, if you can't move somewhere, can you take yourself on a vacation?
Yeah, I love kind of reverse engineering it like you just did. Like what is it about moving to the other state that excites you? And can we start to pull out maybe the parts of that goal and identify them and recreate that in a different container and environment? I want to
Yep.
bridge the gap, Mindy. Do you remember this? This is where it's helpful to have someone on the outside. Do you remember how much you struggled at first being alone because it was so foreign to
Oh,
you?
oh yeah. I actually called my therapist because we talked about it. And I gave her the dates. I had to get, I actually had to ask my husband to leave the house. And it was a big deal. And I basically said, I haven't lived alone. I've barely spent any time alone. I would like 3 days completely alone. So, yeah, it was, I called my therapist and I was like, I want you to know I'm so scared. I don't know what's going to show up in my mind. I don't know what's going to happen. And the first day I was like, woo! I felt like risky business where he's like in his socks, like, like going down the
Gliding.
hallway,
Yeah.
or like Home
Freedom.
Alone. It was like Home Alone. It was like, I'm gonna have cereal for dinner. Like it was so exciting. And then the second day I was like,
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
What am I doing? Who am I talking to? Because I also canceled all work. I was just quiet alone. By the end of the second night, ooh, the demons came in. A lot of voices that I haven't allowed to talk to me started talking to me. Parts of me, traumas started coming out, and by the third day, I called my therapist. I'm like, I'm really anxious. And so we kind of came up with this idea of like, well, maybe let's try to see if you can microdose alone and slowly over time. And after a year, I love my alone more than any time with people. It's like I've now, like, I just had a week alone, and now I'm going to go into a week of together with people, and then I'll need a couple of days alone. And so it's just like our nervous system switch or our metabolic switch. But that's where I find myself now.
What do you love about being alone now?
Well, I fell in love with myself. I'm really fun to hang out with.
You are.
I really entertain myself. Like there's like, oh, I was trying to explain something to somebody the other day. I'm like, my brain's like a 20 movie theater cineplex. Like I like go into a thought and I'm like, let me just go there and think about that for a while. So I've gotten to know the way my brain works. I really have understood how my brain works. I would say the other thing that I love about alone has been I can feel my own energy. And so that as woo woo as that sounds, what's happened is I feel um, my center. So when I'm with other people and it's not a right situation or I've been overdoing it with other people, I feel a crushing anxiety come in and I can feel it in my body. And I'm like, oh no, I need to go be alone now. So I'm able to know when I'm getting too stuck in sympathetic dominance and how to get back into parasympathetic. So whereas I was just numb, I was just going through the motions, which I think a lot of women are doing. And now I can actually have a home frequency that's mine, but I only could get there by actually taking myself on and being alone.
So, in the in between, when you were learning to be alone, to get to this other side of freedom and actually enjoying yourself and feeling your own body and your nervous system and your guide to what is right for you and what's not, what were some of the really important anchor tools that helped you get comfortable in the quiet as you stopped listening to everyone else and started hearing yourself again?
Yeah, it's a good question. For sure, I took up meditation, and I've been blessed that my literary agent is a Buddhist, and she's been teaching me her lineage of Buddhist meditation. So that's been beautiful. Recently I've been getting into, a friend told me about yoga nidra and using yoga nidra to recenter yourself to your body because I feel like sometimes when I'm super stressed, I'm all up here in my head. And so I've used yoga nidra to bring myself to my body. I walking a lot because that right left foot walking actually is calming to the nervous system. So walking and talking to people to think through my thoughts has been helpful. Walking and listening to podcasts has been helpful. And sometimes I actually learned this from Sarah Blakely. Sometimes I just put music on and I just like let my thoughts completely just unravel. I starting my day and ending my day incredibly intentional. So I don't turn on my airplane mode. It doesn't get turned off airplane mode until I have taken some time to just sit and let the thoughts, until I've done a meditation and until I've read something that really I want to put in my mind. So that's about an hour's worth of activities that I do so before I even turn my phone on. And now I do it at the end of the day, which sounds impossible if you have kids, and it is near impossible when you have kids. But when I'm done with work around 4 or 5 o'clock, the computer goes down. I go for a walk. I get out into nature, and then I actually have some chanting music I put on every single night around the same time. I do the red light thing that you do in your house. Like, so there's a slow into my day and then there's a slow out of my day. And I have to do that alone. So even when I'm with my husband, I tell him, like, peace out. I've got to go do my nighttime. And we actually are about on July 1st to move into a new home. And one of the requirements that I had was it needed to have a separate ADU. So I now have this new home has a little separate like ADU, which will have my books and my stuff and all my energy. And I will go in there and do morning, and then I will do evening so that I can stay grounded to myself. So I've done a lot on that.
Super powerful. What's an ADU?
They're big out here in California because space is at a premium. It's an alternative dwelling unit, and it's like a separate house on it. Like usually, like this one is like it has a pool, and it's like a little cabana house, a girl shack. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm calling it my she shed.
She
It's
shed.
like so it's not attached to the house.
Amazing. It's a sit spot. It's just
Yeah,
an expanded version of
yeah.
it.
Yeah, like if you think about it, what do we call them? A man cave. Like,
hmm
why did men need I mean, maybe they needed a space to go and watch, like, like watch sports and drink beer and scratch themselves. That's what I keep thinking of.
We have our
Like
version of that
yeah, like why don't we have our version? I mean,
where we
my
can like take
ADU.
off our bra,
Yeah,
itch the boobs, spread
yeah,
out.
exactly. That's exactly right. And then I move in there on July 1st, but I have these crystals that were in my LA house. I'm like, I'm gonna put my crystals there. I'm gonna put my books there.
Mm.
For me, and I think a lot of moms can relate to this. I was like, I just want my stuff. I'm tired of sharing my stuff. I'm tired of having to make like sure that why is my stuff's always mixed into your stuff? Like, where is my only? Like, I invite you into my she shed. So
Mhm.
this has been something I just discovered in this last year. Is I want somewhere where my stuff lives, and no, but you have to be invited into my stuff, not like you get to just come in and borrow something like a piece of clothing when you have or jewelry when you have a teenage daughter. Well, she's not a teenager anymore, but it's
Yeah.
just like there's as women, we're so willing to give everything to everybody else and keep none of it for ourselves. And my last year has been like taking that back. Like now it's time to create my own spaces.
Good for you. All right, now I want to pull out your doctor brain and your
Of
hormonal
course. You want me to
expertise
go to
on
the
this.
you want me to go to to
Yeah.
the logical side? We can go
Yep.
back over there.
Switch to the other side.
I'm
Okay,
postmenopausal. I can do that very easily.
perfect. All right, so you just talked about grounding practices in the morning and at night, being super intentional, even if just for a few minutes, right? Anchor tools. So let's put your hormonal expertise lens on this. Like, what are those practices doing? They don't just make us feel good. What are they doing to our hormones?
Well, it depends where you are in your journey, but I think this is where the hormonal hierarchy that I always have to give Anna Cabeca credit for. I know you had her here on on the book Nook.
Mhm.
But what when we look at hormones, they work like a team and they have a hierarchy. And so your sex hormones are at the bottom, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and above that is insulin. So if insulin is out of balance, your sex hormones are going to be out of balance. So this is really, this is PCOS. Too much testosterone in a woman often is linked to insulin resistance. But this is also weight loss, like, and this is menopause when we have our insulin like completely whacked out, that whole metabolic system is completely whacked out. Then all of a sudden our hormones are completely whacked out. We start holding on to estrogen too much. Our testosterone depletes. So we got to fix insulin. This was Fast Like a Girl. This is what I saw when you timed your fast to your hormones and you cleaned up that insulin system, you cleaned up your hormones. What now I'm really wanting to bring out to the culture is like above that is cortisol. So if you're completely whacked out with stress, you can't lose weight. There's no incentive for your body to lose weight. Why would it want to lose weight? Like it thinks it's running from a tiger. It doesn't. If you're stressed all the time, you will be insulin resistant. And if you're insulin resistant, your hormones are going to be completely whacked out, which is what we're seeing right now in the culture, where we're seeing so many women rushing to HRT and rushing to bioidenticals. I'm not opposed to those, but let's fix the lifestyle pieces first. And when we're insulin resistant, and we are saturated with cortisol, there's those poor little sex hormones have no chance of balancing whether you're 65 or 35. And then at the top of all of that is oxytocin, which is why friendships, I've doubled down on friendships. I've doubled down on connection. Because if you can keep oxytocin in a good shape, then you calm cortisol, and you calm cortisol, you can balance insulin. You balance insulin and your sex hormones will be balanced. We should all be looking at our life through this lens. But we have been raised in a culture that thinks healthcare is a bunch of parts. We are not parts. We are a holistic ecosystem, especially the female body. So if you want to lose weight and you're struggling, and then ask yourself, what's your stress like? If you are struggling with HRT, are you surrounding yourself with people who are lifting you up and building those oxytocin reserves? So that's sort of the lens in which I really think we need to start having hormonal conversations from.
Yeah, that hormonal hierarchy image, those of you that are in this call in the community is so powerful. We will
Yeah.
drop it in the community. This is something, it's in Mindy's book. Like, cut it out and stick it on your computer because it's such a powerful visual of exactly what you just laid out of like how cortisol impacts insulin, how oxytocin plays a huge role. Um, Knowing all this information and leaning full on to that hormonal hierarchy, what would you go back and tell the part of you
Mm.
juggling full-time career, your
Oh
kids,
God.
your practice, rushing woman?
You received a phone call from me this week about or a Voxer from me that I had a really epic moment that in my career this week. And when I got off the phone, this call, I sat down, and the first person I thought of was my 40-year-old self. And I was like, oh God, if she could see us now, if she could understand that all the time she pushed through, all the time she didn't have an answer and she found an answer, if she could see this moment, she would weep. And I think I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that journey because I'm now 3 years out from having a period. And I think about my 40s were so filled with chaos. And I really, if I could go back and talk to her, I would say, understand your rhythm. Everything is rhythmic. This is what I taught in Fast Like a Girl. You have a metabolic rhythm. You also have a nervous system rhythm. And my 40-year-old self never allowed herself to have that rhythm. This is why I'm so excited about your book, because if I could go back and counsel her, I would say you need to give yourself permission to rest. You need to learn that the slow is as important as the overworking. Like I completely frazzled my nervous system and I kept pushing and pushing and pushing and achieving and wrapping myself up in all kinds of ways to please everybody around me until last year I broke. I literally in January of this year, I had the closest thing I've ever experienced to a mental breakdown. And I feel like if I could go back to my younger self, I would be like, you cannot ignore that the female body, more than the male body, the female body is built off a rhythm. And you need to understand that rhythm. And once you do, everything you want to work in your female body will click for you,
Mm, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
right?
So, so good. So, Mindy, going back to a day when you were like seeing patients full on, what would that rhythm look like? Like, what would be ways that you would approach the day
Oh,
differently
yeah.
from a rhythm lens?
Well, I had already kind of started something my morning time somewhere in my 40s. I had started that. So for sure, but what I was also doing was working out in the morning. I would do slow start to the morning. There were times I was doing 100 burpees at 6 in the morning because it was the only time I could work out. And I now realize that I should have had a little slower wind up in the morning. So I would have done that. The way my clinic was, we had a big chunk, like 2 to 3 hours in the middle of the day that we would do nothing. And or what it was supposed to be, everybody go home, take a break, and then we would come back. I worked during that time. I mean, that's a little bit how I built my whole online world is I would see patients from 7:30 to 11, and then from 11:30 to 2:30 I would do YouTube videos, I would do podcast interviews, and then at 2:30 I would see patients again from 2:30 to 6 o'clock at night. And then I would go home at the end of the night and I would be with the family. And that is sometimes that involved making dinner, sometimes that meant sitting and doing homework, it always meant putting kids to bed. So I think I would have created more like 20-minute chunks of like, go ahead and just go for a 20-minute walk by yourself. Go ahead and take a 20-minute nap. I would have found little moments throughout my day where I was giving back to myself. Um, I'll tell you something that I'm learning right now that might be helpful. Um, is I learned this in yin yoga. Have you gone to yin yoga?
Yeah. Love it. Where you hold the poses for a really long time,
Yeah,
like
but like
stretches.
the first time I went to yin yoga, I was like, we're only doing 4 poses. I could have done this at home. And then I was like, oh, hello, super achiever
There she
brain.
is.
Yeah, like go ahead and take a seat in the back of the room. This is where the parts where it came in. Like you're not needed right now. We're going to let the woman who wanted to learn how to slow down understand this moment. So one thing that the yin yoga instructor said is as we move from one pose to the next, can we move slowly? And I have started like I did it this morning. I wake up like clockwork at 6:30 And sometimes I jump out of bed and I'm like, oh my God, I got to do da 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 da. And I was like, could I get out of bed slowly? Could I go and make coffee slowly? Could I start to move slowly? Like these are things that are priming our parasympathetic nervous system. For the all of my 40s, nope, never did that. Everything was like, what's next? What's next? Where are we going? Let's move fast. Let's get this task done so we can go to the next one. That's why I love your book. I think your book is such a gift for that age of a woman. Like I would have really, really needed that because I was more like, there's not enough time to achieve everything I need to achieve. Therefore, I'm going to move as quickly as I can.
Hmm. And are you achieving more now or less more that you're moving slowly?
That's a great question. You know what? Here's my answer. I don't really want to achieve.
Mm. What do you want?
I saw a reel by Viola Davis a couple of months ago that, and I'm going to paraphrase it. I want to get to know myself in the deepest way I can. I want to, I'm searching for peace.
Mm.
I'm searching for calm now. And I'm really excited about this next book, Age Like a Girl. It's going to come out in December of 2025. It's really important message to bring to the culture, but I've already trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to go out into the world, into the achievement world, and then what am I doing when I come back to ground myself and center myself? Because I can't lose my peace anymore. And I think this is a really interesting one for us as women. In order to keep up, we have been taught that we're worthy when we look a certain way, when we achieve something, when we act a certain way. Um, I really don't care what people think of me. I
Mhm.
really don't care if you look at me and you're like you will never see me Botox because I don't care enough to have you look at me and tell me, "Oh my God, you're beautiful." You know who's the only person that I care about when I look in the mirror is me. I want to look in the mirror and I want to be able to recognize me. Like I'm having some really cool things when I look in the mirror right now. I'm seeing hints of my grandma who was really powerful and meaningful to me. If I had Botoxed the shit out of my face, I might not see her. When I go and I don't own a scale anymore. I don't really care about the number on the scale. I care that when I put on my clothes, they're comfortable and I like how I feel in them. So I'm really when I went out with Fast Like a Girl, I was shocked at how mean the world is. And I was shocked at how people were happy and felt righteous to sit across from their computer and tell me all the ways I was a bad human. Like, one of the most helpful things for me was Brene Brown's Dare to Be Courage Netflix series, where she talks about when her TED Talk came out into the world and all the people told her that she was gaining weight. And she was like, if you're going to sit on the side of the arena and make fun of me, I don't care who you are or what you have to say. Get in the goddamn arena with me before you start to criticize me. And one of the things I learned in Fast Like a Girl is the bigger you get, the more impact you make, the more people want to tell you all the ways you're not worthy. I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, but I don't fucking care anymore. The only thing I care about is that I look in the mirror and I love me, that I like who I am. I have recently become friends with Julie Gottman, who is the marriage expert, and she has a statement that really hit home to me, and I used it with my husband. I'm using it in relationships now, which is the reason we become depressed in relationships, the reason we get in these tense moments with other people in our lives is because we have been saying yes when we mean no.
Mm.
So I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I'm really excited about Age Like a Girl. It's going to crack open a whole different conversation around menopause. I'm happy to be the deliverer of this message. Go ahead and tell me all the ways I should Botox and tell me all the ways I don't have the right degree to be able to deliver a message to you. Whatever you want, or tell me that I've misquoted science, which the bro culture loves to come after me and make fun of me. I literally have a bully out there, a grown man bully that makes fun of me. I don't care. I don't care. What I'm wanting to achieve is peace of mind, and that means I need to not. I'm going to let go of all the ways you want to tell me to live my life.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. You only care about the one person that really matters, and you're not
Yeah,
going to disappoint her anymore.
yeah. Not, I am not, I hope that on my deathbed, I'm like, yeah, I really got to know myself. I really took myself on. I really went into my wounds. I really tried to understand my behaviors. And that was what the lens menopause gave me.
It's beautiful. I want to pull you into our private community. I think we're in a beautiful place, this conversation. I want to go more intimate and I want to save that for these incredible women in the private community. Mindy, it's going to be really interesting just as we wrap this public podcast to watch your next book come out. We're all going to be so excited to read it and then to also watch you because
Hmm.
you did a massive book launch and I can tell you're going to do it your own way. And it's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah,
really interesting because I think you're going to crush it and you're going to do it in a way that your setting is not disappointing yourself and feeling good.
yeah, yeah.
And if we could all
Thank
do
you.
that in our life and watch you as our example, yours is a book launch, but like, in any version of what we're all doing, like, can we just stop worrying about disappointing everyone else and hold our North Star as what would make us happy? So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for being that
Hmm.
person for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here. We're going to drop over into the private community. We'll drop all the links below for everyone else interested. And thank you so much.